Hi, everyone. I am here today with Kelsey Cordell. Kelsey is a life and mindset coach, brain nerd, and spirituality junkie. Her mission is to help others shift their perspective in their lives and allow them to see the answers that lie within themselves. Welcome,
Yes.
Kelsey. Thank you so much for
Hi.
making the time to be with us here
Of course.
today.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. I'm so grateful for your time.
Mhm.
So, today you've put together a PDF for us that I'll be able to share with the group. So, thank you so much for doing that. I'm
Yeah, you're
excited. This is a
welcome.
PDF workbook that we can work through to break old patterns, habits, and beliefs. Can you tell us about the 3 steps to break old habits, patterns, and beliefs?
Yes, absolutely. So the first step is awareness. And before I even get into that, I'll just talk a little bit about um, beliefs in general. So our beliefs are formed from thoughts that we repeat over and over again. And our beliefs can, come from many different areas in our lives. A lot of them come from our childhood when we are they say a walking subconscious mind, like we don't really have the conscious awareness to filter through something that serves us versus something that doesn't serve us. And so what happens is we pick up a lot on our surroundings and maybe the beliefs of our parents or whoever raised us. And it's not a bad thing. It's just kind of what happens. And sometimes we interpret something in our lives when we're a child and that kind of forms, or that's like the root to a belief that we have. And so our beliefs are at the level of our subconscious mind, which is why it can feel a little bit more challenging to kind of work through them because they're on the level of automatic. So because they've been practiced over and over again from practiced thought, it's automatic. It's kind of like when you learn how to drive a car or practice a sport that you get really good at. It's on the automatic level. So our conscious mind is only makes up for like 5%, like our conscious awareness. Everything else is really happening underneath the surface. And so our beliefs influence a lot of our like just how we react to things, how we think about things. It's funny, it's kind of like a cycle. Our thoughts create our beliefs, but then our beliefs influence our thoughts. So it's kind of like this.
Yeah, never ending cycle.
Yes, yeah. So the first step to changing a belief is to just have the awareness of, wanting to change something. And even if you're, sitting here thinking, I don't know what the belief is,
Uh-huh.
you may know, how you don't want to feel. Or you may be aware of a feeling that isn't so great, or a way that you react to things that you're like, okay, I don't want to do this anymore. How can I change this? Because it's also about changing, patterns and habits. So if you have a habit of reacting a certain way to someone in your life or a situation, that again is from repetition. It's automatic. It's like, think of like reacting automatically to something.
Sure.
So once you have the awareness of whatever it is, then you can really start to do the work to kind of shift that. Yeah.
So, can you explain to me what that means? Do the work to shift that. How do you identify your limiting beliefs or feelings?
So you identify them from just life experience. There is a spiritual teacher. I don't know if you've heard of Abraham Hicks,
Oh,
but
yes, I have.
yeah, so Abraham Hicks always talks about knowing what you don't want allows you to see what you do want.
Hmm.
So doing the work around what that means is, to me, is the inner work, is being more aware of how you're thinking and feeling. And if you don't, I always say, if you're not exactly sure what kind of thoughts you've been thinking, you can look at the way you've been feeling, because
Uh-huh.
all of our feelings are a product of our thoughts. So the more that it's funny because we all have to start somewhere, but the more that you are aware of what's going on in your head, the easier it will be to be aware of it, like on a day-to-day basis.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, and awareness, we can't change something that we don't know is there, or we don't know, we can't change what we aren't aware of.
Right.
So that is the first step to anything. Even having a desire for something, like a desire to travel the world, like you first have that awareness of like, oh, I want to do this, like I want to explore. So it all starts with awareness, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. And I love how you say that if you aren't sure what your limiting belief is, to identify the feeling that you don't like having.
Yes.
I think that's really important as well.
Yeah.
So tell us about the second step.
So the second step is to, once you have the awareness of what you don't want, the second step is to identify the new thought or pattern or habit or belief. And for me personally, I did a lot of inner work around the awareness piece and having the knowledge of what I didn't want, but I wasn't really incorporating the new or even like first identifying the new. Mm-hmm. So, having many limiting beliefs that I've been working through, it's great when you work through it and you can look at it in the face, but if we're not identifying how we actually want to feel, we have nowhere to go from there. And instead and this is what I did, I was just constantly looking at, okay, I don't want to feel like this anymore, or this is a belief that I have to change, but I wasn't really doing the work to change it. And, doing the work, it's identifying the new way that you want to feel, or the new habit that you want to incorporate, or the new belief that you want to have.
So you were trapped really in your limiting beliefs, even though you thought you were working to escape from them. You were continuing that entrapment because you didn't identify what you wanted the next step to be.
Yes, absolutely. And I was just I was kind of like stuck in that, the awareness part. And we want to be moving through the process of, changing our beliefs. But it's kind of like we let's say we've never been someplace and we're driving there. If we don't have the map or the directions, like we're not really going to know where to go. So the identifying the new way that you want to feel helps you get there. It's kind of like that initiation.
I love that. Can you tell me what your limiting belief was, and was it around building your business?
Yeah. So a big one for me, there's definitely been a number of limiting beliefs that I've been working through. And it's funny because like every time I think that I'm like, oh, I'm healed. It's like, no, there's still always work to do.
There's always work to do.
Yes. It's a never ending learning experience, which I think is what life is. And so a big one for me though, that was kind of influencing or impacting other areas of my life was this belief around not being worthy. Mm-hmm. And that did, now looking back, I realize how many other areas of my life that belief influenced, but it absolutely was brought to the light, so to say, from building my business, when I realized like, oh my gosh, I don't feel worthy of starting a business. And that of course came from months of feeling like crap. Like, this process of like self-development and personal, discovery and all of those things, it's not always like happy and, rainbows and butterflies. A lot of times we learn through the tough times. And so I really learned more about myself, and I realized, oh my gosh, I don't feel worthy enough to do this, or who am I to do this? And so that was a major belief for me.
So what opened your eyes to that? So did you know right away that you didn't feel worthy, or was it just the feeling when you were trying to book clients that you were working off of? How did you discover that it was a feeling of unworthiness?
It was a constant like diving into why I was feeling a certain way, or why I was feeling like these emotions. But I would say from going off of how I was feeling, because I wasn't always conscious of the thoughts, because again, like they were at the subconscious level, so they're happening automatically without you being aware of it, but we're aware of our feelings. And I was realizing that I was feeling not the best when I was trying to build this business. And that was one of the whole points, was for it to be fun and for me to be able to help others, inspire others. But I was realizing like a lot of stories were coming up about like, you know, this is not the traditional way to do things, and like, what is your family going to think? And I was just looking for validation outside of myself. And when I didn't get that, it really kind of like was crushing at times.
Sure. Were there times where you thought you were going to give up?
Yes, absolutely. And, but I also knew that, there's moments where I'm like, okay, I've come this far. Like, I'm not going to give up. This is something that I really want. There's a quote from this girl that I follow on Instagram. She has a whole business. It's called
Uh-huh.
Manifestation Babe. And
Uh-huh.
she says, I don't even know if this is her quote, if she got it from someone else, but basically it's never give up on something that you don't go a day without thinking about.
I like
Yeah.
that.
So, and that, and a lot of the reasons why I kept going is because I was putting myself in the energy and in the space of others who have been through the same thing, and others who talk about how they felt when they were starting a business. And I would definitely recommend, whether it's a business or it's like you want a relationship, whatever it is that you want, try to find people who are talking about it and who have been through the same thing, because that's inspiring to see someone else who's gone through what you're going through.
I agree, especially as an entrepreneur, it can be very isolating. There are times where your family, like you said, doesn't understand what you're doing. Your friends don't understand what you're doing. They just can't understand why you can't just get a normal 9 to 5 job and why you feel like you need this. And to them, it's a torturous process to be an
Yeah.
entrepreneur, which it is to us at times as well.
Yes.
But it's important that you surround yourself with people who understand your journey, because oftentimes as creative entrepreneurs, we rely on that external validation to
Yes.
get us through, even though, in our minds, we might know that we don't need the external
Yeah.
validation. It's easy to forget and easy to let go of that. And too many people, I think, give up too easily
Yes. Yeah.
because they're not getting that external validation.
Yeah, I agree. And I think on a conscious level, on like a surface level, we may know that we want something. But on a subconscious level, like for me, not feeling worthy was the predominant feeling, because again, like our subconscious is like takes up like 95% of our minds. And
Right.
so consciously I was out here saying like, oh, I want this, I want that, but on a subconscious level I felt like I wasn't deserving of it. And so like there were, like, I felt like I was fighting with myself. And sometimes I still feel like that with other areas of my life, where it's like I want something but I'm doing all of these things, or I'm feeling all of these things that are contradicting what I say I want. So that's why working through your beliefs is huge, because to consciously want something without actually doing some work around it on an area that needs to be like shifted, wanting it to change is not enough. Like we need to do more work around it, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. So, can you tell me a little bit about your spiritual routine? How do you work on a day to day basis through these beliefs, and how do you identify where you want to go?
Yeah, I love that question. So my spiritual practice is my morning routine. And up until like, I want to say a year ago, I would kind of have a morning routine, and then I wouldn't, and then I would, and then I wouldn't. But now it's like a consistent, like I don't go a day without doing something that's for me and that
Mhm.
will help my, growth. So for me, I, wake up in the morning because that's when I'm most focused, and I will journal. And sometimes that looks like making a list of things that I'm grateful for. Sometimes if I wake up feeling a little funky, or I have like I wake up and all of a sudden I'm thinking of like all these negative things or whatever, I will journal about them and just kind of, that helps me put it on paper and to kind of like see it, so that it's not just all of this stuff that's happening in my mind. And so yeah, I'll journal and I'll read. Um, and it's whatever book I'm reading at the time. It's mostly, personal development, self-help, spiritual, inspirational books that I'm reading. And I'll read a little bit, and then I'll meditate. And for me, my meditation practice is kind of like, it's definitely shifted a little bit. Like at times I was doing Kundalini, which is a different type of yoga and meditation. And now I do more of like the mindfulness, where I will either try to quiet my mind completely
Mm-hmm.
and just kind of be still,
Uh-huh.
or I will visualize what I want.
Uh-huh.
And so, yeah, that's kind of what my morning practice looks like.
Okay. And do you use any tools through your meditation?
So I use, right now I've been using an app. It's called Beatfulness, and
Uh-huh.
that has binaural beats, which are like
Okay.
very soothing music. I don't really know exactly how to explain binaural beats. Like I'm going to botch it if I try to,
That's okay.
but this app has a ton of different beats basically, and you can put a timer on. And
Uh-huh.
so that's what I'll do. I've been using that.
Uh-huh.
There's also an app called Insight Timer, which
Okay.
is another app which has a timer and has really soft music, or you can choose from guided meditations.
Uh-huh.
So
And
yeah,
can you explain what a guided meditation is?
yeah. So a guided meditation is for someone who maybe has never meditated before, or just doesn't really understand what exactly it is. That a guided meditation is someone speaking, guiding you through what to do or what to think about. So you are going to be, for the most part, sitting down in a comfortable position or lying down, and then they'll just kind of walk you through the meditation. And it can look different for, like, they all look different. But if you want, you could YouTube or use the Insight Timer app and kind of search if you want a guided meditation around self-love or
Mhm.
forgiveness or the chakras. And I think those are great for someone who maybe finds meditating, like just sitting there with your eyes closed, boring,
Uh-huh.
or if you find it really difficult um to quiet the mind. I think a guided meditation is really helpful.
Hmm.
Yeah, I love guided meditations.
Yeah. So what book is on your nightstand today?
Today
Yes.
it's actually called A Happy Pocket Full of Money.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, and I heard about that from a few other coaches on Instagram that were just showing like the books that they were reading. And
Uh-huh.
I love this book so far because it's not just about money. It's not just like a whole book about money. It's really about um, it mentions the present moment a
Uh-huh.
lot. There's like a whole chapter on the now and how important right now is. And yeah, it's a great book. So highly
Huh.
recommend. I'm nowhere near being done,
That's okay. A
but it's
pocket full of money.
Happy Pocket Full of
Happy
Money.
pocket full of
Yeah,
money. All
it's
right.
good so far. Highly recommend.
I'll have to check that out. Well,
Yeah.
it's interesting that you mentioned mindfulness and the now, because I was writing my podcast, writing the copy for my podcast earlier today, and I was talking about time famine, which means that we have a tendency to allow ourselves to get into a mindset where we don't have enough surrounding us. And so we feel like we don't have enough time, we don't have enough money, and then we just work through the day mindlessly,
Yes.
with a mind that's constantly wandering. Whereas if we are able to just focus on the task at hand and focus on it with joy and happiness, then that will create success versus success creating happiness.
Right.
And I had watched a TED Talk as I was preparing for my podcast. And the speaker mentioned that when our mind wanders, we are more prone to unhappiness, regardless of whether or not our thoughts are pleasant or unpleasant.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
mindfulness in the now is extremely important. I agree.
Yeah. I love that. And I think it's huge because I mean, how often do we go about our day and we're kind of like mindless? Like we're kind of like asleep to what's happening. Like we go through the motions and it's the same as yesterday, and we drive to work or whatever and we don't even know how we got there because we're just in our own heads. And if we're not conscious of what's going on, then how can we better understand the thoughts that we're having, or better yet, shift those thoughts? So it's Abraham Hicks also talks about like thinking with intention and going about your day with intention, and kind of making a declaration in the morning, maybe even like, okay, I'm going to be mindful of my thoughts. And the more mindful of them you are, the more aware of what, how you're thinking or what you're thinking, the easier that awareness will come to you, and the easier it will be to catch yourself in those moments. And that's again why meditation is such a powerful tool, because in meditation, for me, the point of meditation is to like go beyond my like normal or like myself really. To go beyond all of the thoughts that I have and to just be. And a meditation practice is just such a powerful tool for learning how to become aware and observe your thoughts. And I was reading a book not that long ago where the author goes into the science behind meditation. And he was mentioning how he went to a yoga retreat or a meditation retreat, and it was like meditating for hours on end. And he, at first was like thinking of everything under the sun and like couldn't concentrate. And then he said something around like one day he realized like, oh, my mind is wandering. But then it continued to wander. But he spoke to this, whoever was in charge of the retreat, and he was like, yeah, I realized that my mind was wandering. And the retreat, the head of the retreat was like, that's great. Like that's the whole point. Like that's where it starts, is when you realize, when you're the observer of your thoughts, and when you can witness what's going on. And that's why, coming back to your breath is really important, because like when you focus on your inhale and exhale, you're focusing on that and not the mental chatter that's happening.
Yeah, I love that. So what is step 3?
So the third step is probably the most important step in my opinion, and that is to use repetition, to practice. So and I like to think of this as when you are learning a new sport, or if you're learning an instrument, the only way to get good at it is to practice. So if you pick it up, if you're trying to learn guitar and you pick it up every other week, like you're not going to, or it'll just take longer for you to get how to play it, for you to get it down. And so practice and repetition is really how we kind of like anchor in those new thoughts and new beliefs that we want to have. And on a very sciencey level, because I just love learning about like the mind and the brain. And I'm not a neuroscientist, but from books that I've read, in our brains, we have these neural pathways, and that's how the neurons connect or communicate with each other. And so the more we practice something, like anytime we learn something, we are forming a neural pathway. And when we practice it, we strengthen it. So there's a term in neuroscience, and it goes like this: neurons that fire together wire together.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. So the more you practice that, the stronger that connection will be. And when you practice it enough, it becomes on the level of subconscious. Just like how we practiced, thoughts over and over again as children without even really being aware of it, and they formed into these beliefs, we can do the same thing, but with beliefs that serve us. And, like I said before, like our beliefs will influence our thoughts. So if I believe that I'm unworthy because as a child I had this and this happen, and I just formed that belief, that's going to influence thoughts that I have about external, scenarios or situations in my life. And on the cycle goes. So the more we practice the new, and this is why, awareness is huge, and identifying the new belief is huge, because once we have that new belief, we can practice that and, daily.
Yeah, I love that. So we can essentially grow our brains.
Yes.
Our brains are not static in any way whatsoever. We can change our experiences with just our thoughts.
Yes.
Which leads us into the law of attraction. Can you speak to that?
Yeah. So we can definitely shape our brains. And so the law of attraction is, I first read about the law of attraction when I read The Secret, and that kind of started my spiritual path, my spiritual awakening. And so the law of attraction basically states that like energy attracts like energy. And everything in this universe is just energy vibrating at different frequencies. And sometimes it's a little like hard to grasp that, but if you think about energy in terms of picking up on someone else's energy or someone else's vibe,
Yeah.
we are like energetic beings.
Yeah.
So when you are, and the law of attraction doesn't play favorites. It doesn't, grant someone something, but not like we
Mm.
get what we think about. And that's like even
Sure.
a term from like the Buddha, I believe. Like
Okay.
what we think about, we become. So if
Hmm.
we are thinking constantly in a negative frame of mind, we're going to
Mm-hmm.
attract not only more thoughts that are like that, but also experiences. And that's literally going to be the filter with which we view our lives. And we're
Yeah.
all viewing our lives as individuals through our own filters. So that's why someone can look at a situation and be like, oh, that wasn't so bad, or maybe it felt like crap, but you know what, I learned a lot, versus someone else who might be like, in the same situation, say that was the worst thing ever, and on it goes with the negative thoughts. So
Yeah.
yeah.
It also attracts us to people.
Yes.
So if we're thinking negative thoughts, then we tend to be attracted to negative people.
Yep.
Whereas where we're thinking more positive thoughts, then we're attracted to more positive people. So it's really important to surround yourself with those people that
Yeah.
uphold you and support you and continue to push you to your goals, to where
Yeah.
you want to be.
Yes, absolutely. And
Yeah.
I remember in The Secret, and this blew my mind when I read it, the author was talking about how she's like, have you ever had a bad day? Like you wake up just on the wrong side of the bed, something happens, maybe you read a text or you stub your toe or whatever, like you just had a bad morning and you do nothing to change your vibration. In other words, like you do nothing to shift how you're thinking and feeling.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like how many of us have had like a bad day from start to finish?
Yep.
And that's because we did nothing to shift that. And it's
Yeah.
sometimes it can be a little bit like harsh to realize like, oh my gosh, it's my fault.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's also empowering to realize that we have a choice, on how we view things and how we see things and how we're thinking. Like
Yeah.
only I have the power to change, my thoughts. It's all me.
I agree. And your
So,
feelings, I always tell my kids, no one can make you feel a certain way. It's your
absolutely.
choice.
Yes.
You're choosing to feel happy or sad or angry. So
Yes.
just carry that with you as you walk through your life
Yeah.
experiences.
Yes, I love that. I love that concept too.
Nice. Yeah.
Like when people are like, "Oh, he made me feel this way." I'm like, "Well,
No one can make you feel any way except for
yeah,
yourself. It's all your own choice.
yeah, definitely.
And you can choose if someone makes you feel a certain way, then you can choose to dissociate yourself from that
Yeah,
person. There's no sense in putting yourself around people that make you feel badly.
yeah,
And I'm saying they make you feel, which they don't. You make
right.
yourself feel
Yeah,
badly, but
right.
there is something to be said about that negative energy.
Yes. Yeah,
um,
absolutely. Yeah.
yeah.
And then, once you realize like this doesn't feel good, you can pull yourself out of that situation. Um,
Yeah.
this reminds me, my boyfriend always says like if I ever say like, "Oh, I'm embarrassed" or whatever, he's like,
Uh-huh.
"Well, you don't have to be embarrassed. Like, just choose not to be embarrassed." And he
That's
said it
nice.
like so plainly, and I'm like, he's right.
Absolutely. It's all a choice.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I agree. So tell me about your business. Who do you work with and what do you offer to your clients?
Yeah, sure. So my mission is to just really help others who are feeling stuck or lost.
Hmm.
A couple of years ago, I was feeling very stuck where I was in life, and I know that if I had someone, I kind of just want to help others who, yeah, are feeling the way I felt a couple of years ago, and kind of like guide them through the process of doing the inner work and understanding yourself and really connecting with yourself, because I think that is one of the most important things, is to be able to connect yourself and realize that you have everything that you need inside you. And whether you are looking for happiness or fulfillment or purpose or whatever it is, like first that comes from going within. And yeah, so that's my mission, and to just help others to like shift their mindset and to understand how important it is to be aware of their thoughts and their feelings. And right now I have two offers. One of them is a one-on-one 10-week coaching,
Okay.
and the second is like sort of like a membership. And there's different like tiers, I guess is the right word.
Uh-huh.
And that's basically for someone who knows that they want to change something in their lives, but they're just not exactly sure if they have the time or the money or whatever to work with a coach for something like 10 weeks.
Uh-huh.
This is like a shorter, it's kind of like cancel at any time, like whatever it is for you, like whatever you need that
Sure.
serves you. Yeah.
So are your sessions online, in person, either or, both?
So I have, mostly it's online.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, most of it is online. I did just start a meetup group that I will be hosting. The plan is to host meetups once a month, and I'm in the Santa
Okay.
Barbara area. So my first one is
Yeah.
on Thursday.
Okay.
But that, we'll see if that won't be more like a session. It'll be like just connecting with other
Okay.
like-minded spiritual people who just want to hang out.
Yeah.
Excited for that.
So so other people know you did that in the Meetup, I
Yeah.
guess, app or
Yeah.
on the website, on the Meetup
Yeah.
website. So you created a Meetup and then people joined your Meetup, or did you
Yeah.
invite people into your Meetup?
So what I did was I started the group on the Meetup app, and you can put hashtags, or I think it's hashtag. No, you pick the category of like what your group is about,
Okay.
and you can type them in, or there's like a bunch. And so that's what I did. And then
Uh-huh.
what will happen is Meetup will alert. So when you sign up for Meetup, if you're someone who wants to go to other groups,
Uh-huh.
you pick your interests, and then the app will notify you if someone starts a group in your area that's with your interests.
Uh-huh.
So I didn't invite anybody. The people just joined because it was part of their like interest and it's in the area, which I think
That's
is really
great.
cool. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's options of free meetups or paid
Yeah.
meetups, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
And then you primarily promote your business on Instagram, but you also
Yeah.
use Facebook, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
So can you tell our group how you use Instagram?
Yeah, sure. So I use Instagram. Mostly I use Instagram, and I will do posts, and I will do Instagram lives at times. And sometimes I will upload those Instagram lives to IGTV.
Uh-huh.
And
Which
then
is
I also,
Instagram TV for
yes.
those who don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I also do Instagram stories, and my stories will look different depending on the day. Sometimes it's me just talking and
Uh-huh.
listening. Other times it's me typing things,
Uh-huh.
or talking about the program or the membership or whatever. So it kind of varies. Yeah, it varies.
So the Instagram story versus your Instagram feed, is the Instagram story similar to the Facebook story where it's only up for 24 hours?
Yes.
Okay. And do you have more success with a video on an Instagram story or your feed or text? Where do you find, or what type of content gives you the most
Feedback.
engagement? Yeah.
Yeah. I would say my posts right now, I would say my posts in terms of seeing the feedback from, you know, comments or
Mm-hmm.
likes.
Uh-huh.
I think posts are great too, because like you said, the Instagram stories are only up for 24 hours. Now, Instagram does have this feature called highlights where you can
Okay.
highlight, and it shows on your feed and it'll stay there, so that if you talked about something and you're like, this is golden, I need people to be able to see this more, then you can put it in your highlight. But I would say my posts right now, although I have done some pretty vulnerable Instagram stories where people have reached out, and said like, thank you for sharing this, or, whatnot. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And so what other channels do you plan on incorporating, social media channels do you plan on incorporating into your strategy?
Yeah. So I just, last week, I decided to go on YouTube because I'm
Great.
constantly on YouTube looking for inspirational videos. I mean, there's so much content out there for anyone who's just like going through a spiritual path or entrepreneurial path or whatever it is. There's YouTube, there's podcasts, there's books out there. There's just so much information, and so I love using YouTube. And there's a couple channels that I follow. And last week I got the little nudge. I was like, wait a minute, why don't I use it too? Like, I
That's
like to
awesome.
talk and just like riff on topics. And I think it's a great,
Yeah.
channel to use. So yeah,
And
that's
you can
definitely.
redistribute your content. So whatever you're creating on Instagram, you can distribute to YouTube or vice versa. So you only really have to create one piece of content and then you can distribute it across several different channels.
Yes, absolutely. And I follow this YouTuber who, got started on his entrepreneurial path on YouTube, and
Uh-huh.
he repurposes that, and he has a podcast. And I know a few other people that do that. So, they just grab the audio from the video. And so, yeah, there's so much room for repurposing on different
Yeah.
channels.
And
Yeah.
that's great because you don't have the same audience on YouTube as
Right.
you would on a podcast or Instagram or even Facebook. So you're
Exactly.
reaching different pockets of people
Yeah.
when you do something like that.
Yes, absolutely.
So
Yeah.
where do you see your business 5 years from now?
I see my business bigger,
Okay. And
more
what does that
efficient.
look like?
Just reaching more people,
Uh-huh.
and maybe spreading to other, I mean, like I said, a YouTube channel is
Yeah.
starting, but maybe, I don't know, other channels that are out there, and just being able to reach more people. And I do have this like vision of me speaking on stage. I don't know where or
Yeah.
when,
That's
but I would
great.
love that in 5 years. That'd be sweet.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
And then do you belong to any groups, live groups, face-to-face groups in the Santa Barbara area?
Um, Other than, yeah, there's a few. So on the Meetup app, I am
Mhm.
part of a bunch of groups, and then depending on when they have their meetup
Uh-huh.
event,
Uh-huh.
depends on when I go or if I can go. But other than that, just the group that I started. So I'm
Yeah.
hoping that that really can take off, just to connect with others. And, whether or
Yeah.
not clients come from that or not, I think I've always enjoyed when I've gone to meetup groups and just been able to connect with others. And so, yeah,
Sure. So where do you find your clients? How do they find you?
I would say Instagram, um,
Okay.
Instagram, and just constantly talking. This is something that I'm still learning to this day, is like being consistent with just sharing my message. And usually it's Instagram though, and people
Okay.
will find me through, I don't know, a post, um probably mostly a post, because those will show up on other people's, like if I hashtag something,
Uh-huh.
that can show up.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Got it. So will they reach out to you and ask you, is it clear to them that you have a business? Is there a call to action in your post? How do you convert them into a client?
Yeah, so some of my posts are just kind of like inspiration.
Uh-huh.
Some of them are call to action, and my stories will have call to action at times. Other times it'll just be me riffing. It kind of varies for me personally. Um, so they will usually reach out to me via like DM.
Okay.
That's usually what it's been, like a direct message,
Uh-huh.
whether it's in a response to my story or they just have been following me and they see that I have a business, and then they, just DM me.
Yeah. Well, that's great.
Yeah.
Well, is there anything else that you want us to know about your business?
Um, just that if you are feeling called to
Uh-huh.
change your mindset, and kind of like bust through those limiting beliefs and just really learn to connect with yourself, reach out to me.
Absolutely. And I'm so grateful that you created this awesome PDF. I'll be sure to share that with everybody in the group as well. I'm excited to work through it too. So I know that'll be a great starting point for people to get to know you and get to know more about your business and to reach out to you. So thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it. I loved learning about your business and talking with you and learning more about you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome. All right. Bye. Have a great day.
Bye. You
Bye.
too.
Thank you.